Well, um, well, when you first kind of brought that question, the words that came to my mind was that I came to play. I don't know if I have many more words to describe what
Mm.
exactly I mean. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And so I have a couple questions for the group with what you just shared. If Mary Lise came to play, like, do we notice play for us? Is can we know play as an inherent quality of this awareness, of this self, of this beingness? It's like, oh, when everything relaxes, when there's just flow, can we touch a sense of play that's just inherently here? And then can we also find play that's a part that I have this part when Mary Lee says it, oh, I want to play too. What are we going to do? What are we going to play? What games are we going to play? It's just to notice, see if you can notice those. And then like one thing that I love finding is that play that's just our intrinsic nature. Wow, it's like when the sky of beingness isn't obscured by parts. What's here? What is your nature when the sky is here? Or as Nicole speaks of, just becoming more access to self. Can we find play as an aspect of that? Hmm. Thank you, Mary Lise. Hmm. And so before we check in with Jack and Debbie, let me just ask everyone, how are you? How are you? Because we've had the richness of Nicole, Lindy, and Mary Lee sharing. What's here for you? How are you? What responds to that? Can you notice the parts that are responding? Like, oh, this is interesting. There's some understanding. I'm thinking about the play, an interested part. Maybe a spiritual achiever. Like, wow, that'd be really cool to know play more here. Maybe a bored part. Maybe a critic. Like, oh, I don't. It's just kind of. We're not. When are we going to get into the real stuff? Just to notice the parts, and as you notice them, how are you aware of them? How do they show up for you? What's your metaphor? Is it like sometimes we play with the sense of like a planetarium where the parts are just like planets so we can see them? And can you see more than one part now? Can you see a couple parts that are arising? When I ask you, how are you? What's here? And you zoom out a little bit to maybe be aware of a few of them. And if you use the planetarium metaphor, what are they arising in? What is the galaxy? What is the sky? Is it peace? Is it okayness? Is it stillness? Is it spaciousness? Or more classic IFS, is it calm? Is it connectedness? Or for some, it's a hot tub, and these parts are just soaking in an infinite hot tub. Or for others, it's a stage, and they're like actors and dancers on the stage. And so, how are you? Can you be aware of both the parts and what they're arising in simultaneously? The parts, these precious expressions of you, and the beingness simultaneously. So we'll play a lot with that today. All right. Um, Hey, Debbie has her. Debbie. Hey, Debbie.
Hi, nice seeing everyone. Nice to see you, Sid. It's yeah. And the reason I'm here is I've missed you in the group. When you and I was been thinking about you too, and just hoping everything is going well with your family.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. And I'm curious about that, the missing the group and missing Debbie and I've been playing in this for a long time and have a friendship in it. It's like the missing of this. What is it that you find in this connectedness with the group and this hour and a half we all get to spend together? What is it that's being missed? And maybe
Um,
before you answer, let me just invite everyone. Maybe
oh,
you
okay.
could guess, like, what do you think Debbie's going to say to that? What is it? that is being longed for and enjoyed? What is it that's being enjoyed? What's going to come? Or for you, what is it that is like for you to, after an hour and a half today, after our group, what is it that's going to be like, that was meaningful, that was valuable? What is it? Is it the play of Mary Lisa's? Is it the kind of easier access to self? Is it a sense of learning or deepening in self? Like, what is it that is wanted? Debbie, what is it for you that as we come together?
Let's see, what is it? I think, yeah, I wanted to say like shared reality, like that I don't, yeah, I guess it meets my needs for connection. I mean, connection, but in a deep way. And also, at times in these groups, I've felt like when people are sharing vulnerably about their parts, I felt a lot of people's self energy embracing this, whoever is talking, sharing about what's going on. And that's extremely healing for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we all feel that right now? What's the difference now from 15 minutes ago? Is there a sense of, Debbie speaks of connectedness. In seeing each other here, is there somehow a reflection of this intrinsic connectedness of self? It kind of affirms, perhaps for our parts, wow, we're not alone. There is connectedness here, not alone. And then Debbie speaks of like the self energy that's here. Can your parts right now, can they feel maybe the self, your beingness, whatever qualities of self that are here? Maybe it's just kind of a joy and play, as Mary Lee speaks of, or maybe it's a peace, maybe it's a connectedness. And then what's the difference when you're with 5 friends in this? You feel, is there like a space, a safety, a care, of being seen? Like as we celebrate Debbie, and it's part of what we do here, although it might sound silly. It's like, oh, Sid just uses that word celebrate and celebrating, but there's a subtext in this. Like if we can really be intimate with and enjoy each other's parts, as Debbie speaks of this enjoyment of connection, if we can be intimate, enjoying that, and it seems to be much easier to be intimate with others' parts sometimes than our own. And as we're intimate with each other and celebrating, it seems to open us up more to that more in our own system. Thanks, Debbie.
Sure.
All right, Jack, and bringing the circle to a close, what's here for you? What is it what is it? You and I were talking about the focusing. What is it that would be most interesting for you?
Oh, what would be it? I mean, it's all interesting. It's never not interesting, right? So, but I sort of came with this thought of, okay, there's this sort of vague feeling below my thoughts. You know, how do I get more in touch with that energy or what that wants to tell me? Or how do I get like a handle on what that, without trying to just blow it off, or, oh, it's this, without just sort of quickly mentally blowing it off, right? So I came with that sort of in mind, but no, I'll be honest, I come because, and I hope this doesn't sound strange, it probably will be, but I enjoy being around people who at least somewhat conform to my prejudices. because a lot of people's eyes would glaze over the moment you even start talking about stuff like this, right? At least not people that I know or hang out with, right? So the fact that people are actually even interested in something called effortless IFS is just, there's other people that are interested in that, just attracts me to that, people that are interested in it. So that's, I think that's really cool. So that's, I'll admit
Awesome.
that.
Awesome. That's it. Let me just
Yeah.
check with everybody about the first thing you said. When Jack speaks of kind of to tune in to these vague feelings that are below my thoughts, the subtleties of what's arising, the energies in our system. Let me ask you all a question. When there's this that we call self, this beingness, this true nature, however, whatever your word is for it, there's just for your word, or this awareness, as Lindy calls it. Is there any want there? When we rest in this beingness, is there any lack in it? Is there any want? Or is there an absence of lack? An absence of resistance? There's just a sense of fulfillment. If we go with the classic IFS words or these expanded qualities of self, in the calm, connectedness, clarity, peace, love. Do you know the space that is an absence of lack, where there is no stress or anxiety or shame? As we touch that, this contrast is really helpful in this game. This is why I love IFS with like self or parts. Like, see how that's real for you. Like, you know, this awareness of self as the absence of lack, as this causeless okayness, or maybe it's just a sense of presence. But as you know that, we find that there are no problems there. And then from there, can you find a fascination with what Jack's sharing? It's like, okay, then let's see the subtlety of what's arising. Sometimes we call them self-like parts in IFS. Like if there's any stress or anxiety in your systems at all, and I'm not saying that's what Jack was pointing to, but it's just a common way of finding it. That's not self. At least in my system, it's not self, that's a part. And then it becomes this really fun game of getting to know these subtle arisings in our system. Jack, how am I doing? That's how I translate what you bring up.
Well, I thought it was you're really, really close. It gets hard to put words to. What came up for me was an absence of lack as a polarity to a mere lack, like a non-affirming lack. Like an absence of lack sort of assumes there's something you could lack, but just a mere lack doesn't quite assume there's something missing in a way for me. So I'm gonna think about that for a while. That it seems like a
Okay.
polarity there that could help me out. But yeah, no, I'm really sort of feeling like, have you guys ever lived through a hurricane? Have you ever like stayed in your home? And I at least live in South Florida, so I've been in, and a hurricane's coming through, and it's headed right for your house or the whole, whatever. And there comes a point where you're at the eye of the hurricane. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but you could literally, after the wind's going at 100 miles per hour, you could really walk outside. And it's like a nice, calm, peaceful day. But you better get back inside because that other wall is going to hit you in, however many minutes it's going to be. So I sort of have this sense of being in that eye of the hurricane. It's peaceful, but there's all this stuff winding around that could come at me at any moment. Can I be peaceful with that? And then I think of like being in a balloon. Have you ever been in a hot air balloon? The thing about being in hot air, I've never been in one either, but the thing about it is there's no wind in a hot air balloon. The wind could be blowing, but because you're moving with the wind, you don't feel any wind at all. So could you like be in the storm that's full of wind and not feel the wind because you're so in it. So I've been playing with those ideas, but that gets a sense of like where like that anxiety maybe you might feel in the of that peacefulness. So the peacefulness has this anxiety for me sometimes, and that's coming up. So anyway, that's kind of what's coming
Interesting.
up for me.
Thanks, Jack. How about that eye of the storm for all of us? Where do we go with that? You know, Dick Schwartz in IFS, he speaks of self-leadership. It's like the parts are trusting self, or we're abiding as self, abiding more and more in this beingness. Can we relate to sometimes it is like Jack's eye of the storm, that there could be all these parts, a dissonance of parts, a storm happening, yet there's a sense of abiding in this awareness, in self, in this peace. Well, let's take a dive. Let's take a dive together, a little experience and going into this, and then we'll go around and become more intimate with what's happening and how this plays in each of our systems. But before I do that, I want to do my housekeeping real quickly, which is that I'm a mediator. I'm not a psychotherapist, and so this really isn't the psychotherapy of IFS. For me, it's more friends and colleagues exploring together. If everybody's good with that and being responsible for their own journeys, if I could get a thumbs up, please. Awesome, thank you. And the other one is I've got the recording on, and I always do that so that I can share this with others who are interested that can't make it. But only my square is shared, only my video is shared. Yours will never be shared. However, the audio that you speak during this could be. And so two things with that. One is in Effortless IFS, we don't go so much into the story of the parts. Instead, we're interested in what the parts are longing for to help them find fulfillment here and now. So there's no need to share more than you're comfortable with. And secondly, at the end, if there's anything that you've shared that I'm not so comfortable with that, just stay on and let me know, and I'll go delete over that. So if I could get a thumbs up that everybody's okay with this, that this might be shared, if I could get a thumbs up, and then let's take a dive together. But before we do, is there anything bubbling that's like, no, I need to say this, and something's coming up, this part, this like really doesn't like what Mary Lee said about play. What Mary Lee?
There's something that wants to be said, and I already wanted to say this when you first called on me, but I somehow found myself at a loss for words. Something about the enthusiasm with which you welcomed me, and kind of wanting to return that somehow, but I'm sometimes just totally at a loss for words. And now kind of staying with the different parts that are like some really exasperated, and some like, why are words so hard? It's something about wanting to also share that, something about how happy I am to be back, and so on and so forth.
It's really easy. Like, how are we doing in receiving the gift of Mary Lise in this joy, this love that's there? It's like, is it helpful because part of this game is becoming more intimate with self, with beingness, with our nature. And we get to support each other in this. So it's this joy that we're experiencing in Mary Lise. Like, how does it resonate for you? If it's like a tuning fork with the joy of our intrinsic beingness, can it touch that for you? The joy of beingness. And so that's what. Anything else you'd like to share, Mary Lise?
No, I'm good for now. I
Oh,
think.
thank you.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I don't know, maybe my theme for today is just exploring how difficult it is to know what I want to say and then say it.
Great. How about that? Can we all find kind of that part that's like, gosh, I'm not sure how to say this, and there's something I want to say, it's not here, or even a part that's like, I should be able to say this more clear, or I should be clear. As we hear Mary Lise, we find that this is universal, what she's pointing to. Awesome. Thank you, Mary Lise. Anybody else have something bubbling before we take this experiential dive together? And then this that we're not here by ourselves. There are 5 of us with you, with each other as we explore. Can your parts, and if it's helpful, we could keep your eyes open or close your eyes as we go for maybe 10 minutes together. What's this like right now for you or your parts? What's this like for what's arising in you? Is there a sense of welcoming? Are your parts feeling that there's a space of welcoming here for them? Either in you or you with us? Are they experiencing welcoming? Are you experiencing being seen? Are you experiencing being seen? So what's the loudest arising in each of us right now? See if we can find that. And in my friend Jack, sometimes it's just like, oh, it's just peace. It's just peace. It's just stillness. You can find the loudest arising, and it might be really subtle. It might be like Mary Lee says, gosh, I'm not sure what there is to say or how I can say this best. What's the loudest part in you right now? It might be a healer part, like, so what's going to be helpful? Is this going to help heal some of my system, help me find some relief? What's the loudest part? Is it a critic that maybe is focused outward, like, gosh, Sid's talking way too fast? Or is it a critic that might be facing inward, like, gosh, my system, God, I wish I had more of that connectedness that Debbie was speaking of, if I was experiencing that, or the subtlety that Jack was speaking of, or the awareness that Lindy was speaking of, or the background in IFS of Nicole. What's your loudest part? And when you notice your loudest arising, where do you hear it? Where is it? Where do you hear that? Like, oh, is it in front of your face? Is it in the center of your head? Is it out to the right? Can you find where you hear it? Or do you see it? Is there an image? Or is it, like I said, that's so conceptual? It's all somatic here. It's just a sensation. Where do you find it? See if you can find a location for this loudest arising. And then what is it that voice, that expression, that part, what is it that it wants? What is it that is longing for? As you hear that part, that expression, oh, Sid should do this differently. I should do this differently. I'm uncomfortable. My back hurts. Whatever that part is, what is it that it's longing for? And as we hear that, what quality of self is most like what is being longed for? That's here now. As you hear the longing, what is it truly longing for? Is it longing for, is it peace? Is it acceptance? Is it connectedness? Is it a sense of welcoming? Is it love? Is it flow? Is it ease? And what's most like what's being longed for that's here now? What's most like what's being longed for? And it can be, if it's not working as a part, just notice, what are you longing for? What do you really want? What is it that you want? And what's most like that which is here now? And then to notice if there's a part that's helping. Okay, like, oh, I can hear what's being longed, or it's just a kind of a therapist part, a healer part that's helping figure this out. And can we see that as well? Can we be aware of that part as well? This is the being aware of more than one part simultaneously. There's one that's helping. And if there's a helper part here, what is it that it's longing for? Oh, I want to do this right. I want this to work. What is it that your parts are longing for? If we do it right, if it works, what do we find? Is it longing for peace, ok-ness, flow? Is it longing for a lightness of being, like this play, this joy that Mary Lee speaks of? Is that what our parts are longing for? Is everyone aware of at least two parts right now? And as you're aware of these parts, and if not, just pause for a moment and see what else is here. Oh, I should be doing it differently. Maybe it's a pusher or a critic part. Oh, I'm not following instructions right. Whatever voice is there, and just notice the part. Or maybe there's a vulnerability, a part like we call an exile in IFS, a vulnerability here. I have one in my belly right now. What are your parts that are present? And are you able to be aware of a couple parts at the same time? Like maybe it's that planetarium where there are planets. Maybe they're soaking in a hot tub. Maybe they're on a stage, whatever works, whatever your metaphor is. And then what are they arising in? What is the galaxy, the hot tub of? What are they soaking in? What's the stage? Is it like Lindy's word, awareness? There's just awareness of what's here. Are they floating in a connectedness? And as they arise, it's just like they're being welcomed with a connectedness, perhaps a hug. What are they arising in? And then this that they're arising in the self. Are you aware of self? Are you aware of joy? Are you aware of connectedness? Are you aware of awareness? Are you aware of peace? Or are you that? Are you this peace, this spaciousness, this stillness? Are you the galaxy, the space that the parts are arising in? And as always, there's no right way of doing any of this. We are fascinated with one thing, which is your system, how it's working, what's arising in you. And you find a sense of fascination with your parts, with the self that's here. And to include Jack sharing about subtlety, as we're aware of what's here, or perhaps just as we're aware of our bodies, the sensations in our bodies, do we notice any subtle expressions that are coming up, any subtle parts? Maybe it's a little bit of discomfort. Maybe a part that's like, gosh, how much longer is he going to go? Maybe our bodies, when it's like our bodies becoming a little sore and would like to move. Can they be included as well? Can we be aware of these subtle parts? And then, almost as if you were in a restaurant and you were hearing the voices around you, as you hear the voices of your parts, kind of, what is it that they're longing for again? What is it that your parts are longing for? Is it to be seen and welcomed? Is it for a sense of safety? Are they longing for safety? Are they longing for appreciation? longing for there just to be okayness here? It's okay. Are they longing for, just need a sanctuary, we need a break? Are they longing for home? What is it that your parts are longing for as you notice, if you can hear them or feel them? And notice if there's a part that's trying to help, and then we're just aware, just like we're aware in a restaurant. There's just awareness here. What is it that your parts are longing for? Is it for love, acceptance, care, nurture, connectedness, peace, calmness, clarity, play, joy, ease, lightness? And as you notice what they're longing for, back to that question, we're just about done. What's most like what's being longed for that's here now? Even find it as you hear their longing. It's almost like a child. Sometimes it's like a child in the shadows, longing for care, attention, connection, that just kind of evokes what it's longing for. Can you find that our parts can evoke from us what they're longing for? As you hear your parts, they're wanting peace, they're wanting relief, they're wanting care, they're wanting ease. What's most like that which is here now? And do you have to go anywhere? Do you have to do anything for it to be here? Or is it just here? Is there peace here? Is there flow here? Is there ease here? And just before we close, just to invite just an awareness of our precious systems, an awareness of the parts that are here, awareness of self and beingness. And almost like we're having a birthday party for you, your parts, for your parts. Can there be a sense of like appreciation, enjoyment? Wow, this is how life is moving in me. These are my aspects of me, of expression of me. These are my parts. And it'd be a sense of awe, fascination in what's here in you. And so when you're ready, just very gently, you can see it opening up to the space. And so sometimes there's just a sense of open the eyes without looking, like still staying right where you are, but the eyes are open. And there's just awareness of there are 5 of us with you. And there's still the preciousness of what's arising inside. And maybe there's that part Mary Elise was speaking of, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say about this. And we just notice that part. And then we get to just relax. Wow, that was a lot. That was so much. You can just shake it out, be here now. There's nothing we have to do with any of it. We're not going anywhere in this journey in our time together. We're just, okay, then here we are. If it helps to shake and flow and move a little bit, because we've completed the journey. We're just going to come back together and just kind of be curious and celebrate. How's this playing in each of us? What's here? What's here? And we'll just kind of go around. But before we go around, is there anything like bubbling? Like, hey, this was difficult. I didn't like this, or I'm having trouble with this, or I have a part that's like, God said, you went way too long. Anything bubbling that's wanting to be shared? All right. Well, then I think I'll try to go, if I can remember the order, I think I'll go back. I think it was Nicole who went first. I'll go back to Nicole, and it'll be a question of kind of like, what's going on? How was that? What's here?
Mm, well, there was definitely a sad part that was there. I still feel that. And sorry, it's hard to get past the sad part. It's really sad.
What about that, Nicole? This sad part. How do you, what's this like, being aware of the sad part?
Well, it was kind of like just a low grade sad part that was hanging out in the background. And then it got some attention. It became less low grade. Yeah. And of course there's this backstory to the sad part, but yeah.
Well,
And
how about
so
that? How about the sad part? Just let me just
yeah.
include everybody in this, because there's just, we don't want to miss the gifts of Nicole here. And as she's speaking of the sad part, notice how you respond to that. There's an endearment towards her sad part. And maybe you can feel it some as she's speaking. You can feel some of that sad part. And is it unfamiliar to you? Or do we all know, oh, I know the sad part. I know the sad part, especially it was a low grade sad part, and then it got some attention, and it just but it sounds like it increased as the sadness was felt more. Do we all know that? And then I've got a question for all of us and Nicole. When we have a sad part like this, do we have another part that's like, okay, enough of that? Or like, okay, it's better to be self. It's better to be this joy that Mary Elise spoke of than the sadness. Do we have a part that has a preference like that? What happens in your system, Nicole, as the sad part becomes more pronounced?
I thought, like, for me, it was you asked if there was a helper part, and there's the helper part that partly just wants to get the whole process right. It has a lot of feelings, especially since I'm a clinician, about getting it right and getting it right for not just me, but for my clients and not screwing up. Yeah, so that part was present. And then there was, yeah, the ache and pain part, a little shoulder crick going on part. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
That was a beautiful answer. How about that? How about as Nicole speaks of her get it right part? It's like, come on, I'm a clinician. This is like, I need to be able to do this right, and it's like, what's our version of that? The get it right part. What's our version of that? And is it okay? I guess here's my question for all of us as we connect with the sadness in Nicole and sadness in us, and this part that's like, when you get this right, you do it right. Is it okay that these parts are here? It's like that classic IFS question that is like, how do you feel towards the parts? Because we notice as we hear these parts in Nicole, the sad part and the get it right part, is there a sense of welcoming curiosity, love, endearment towards it? Or what arises in us? Or is there a sense of, oh, but we want to help her move towards the grandness of the bliss of self and beingness? Notice that there's a preference. There's an idea that something is better than the sadness and better than the do it right part. Can you find that? This is real subtle, but this is where a lot of our suffering comes from. These little parts that have an idea, these voices that something is better than what's here. But what do you think else you'd like to share with us, Nicole?
Yeah, as you say that, I'm not that fond of my get it right part. The sad part, I understand that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For all of us, when we hear not so fond of my get it right part, we all appreciate that? Or it might not be the get it right part for you. It might be this achiever, this pusher, this critic, whatever it is. I'm not really so fond of it. And this is where it gets more subtle, which is where Jack was pointing us. This sense of, I'm not so fond. Like, what part of us isn't so fond of a part? What part of us has a preference? Not so fond of this. What aspect of us? Can we find that part? Where does that occur in us? Final words, Nicole?
I'm good.
Good. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. How was that for all of us? How was that? Did we receive gifts from Nicole? Was she pointing to helping us dive deeper into our own systems to know our parts and ourselves? Right, just before we go to Lindy, because this can be kind of intense, this kind of moving around, this dance as we get to hear from each other. Just let me ask you, like, how are you? How are you right now? How are you? Maybe do what Jack does. Oh, before we go to Lindy, because we don't want to miss the gifts of each other. It's like, how are you? Just noticing the parts. And is it okay that those parts are here? There might be exhaustion. There might be, wow, this is a lot. Said I just coming to just kind of like listen and hear about EIFS, and now you're just like you're making us do this whole dance this whole time. Come on, it's like yeah, or just the movement. Just how are you? Just to notice the parts that are here. Notice what's here, and is it okay? Is there okayness with what's arising? They're okay with what's arising, even if there's a part that's like, okay, I'm taking a little break. I don't think I'm going to listen for the next 5 minutes. All right, Lindy, it's your turn. What's going on?
Yeah, I was feeling really tired, and there was like a split, so it kind of came in as almost like a couple of two twins, very young twins, both feeling quite happy and relaxed, and one was very much just wanting to go to sleep, and then the other one was, oh, how nice it is to feel all this. Let's not waste this. Let's not go to sleep and let's stay here and enjoy this feeling of yeah, just sort of relaxed joy. So there was a bit of, tension. I mean, nothing. I mean, it wasn't a fight really. It was more of a negotiation going on between the two. One, one thinking, well, let's have a little rest while the going's good. We're tired, and the other one's sort of saying, yeah, but let's not go to sleep. Let's just stay awake and enjoy this. And then there was something else.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask, what were they as these twins? This one that just let's go to sleep. Oh no, let's enjoy what's here. This is nice. What was the space that they were arising in? Was it your word awareness? Was it peace? Was it stillness? Was it love? What was the self that was here?
It was all of those things really, which I find it quite difficult to contact a lot of the time, I think, which is where the twin that wanted to stay awake, just thought, well, this is a fairly rare time for me to be sitting here not feeling too anxious and yeah, just wanting to enjoy it. There was another bit bubbling underneath though, which I think is the habit bit, oh, I want to do something else, it's just sitting here good enough, but kind of resigned that the twins were winning. But there's definitely a little bit of unrest, but only quite small. It wasn't fighting for a big piece of the action, but there was.
So let me ask you about that one. This one first, when we hear Lindy say, and then there was a part that's like, oh, I want to do something else. So we really have to just sit here, and how long is this going to go? And it's like there's some things to do. Can we all relate to that? Sometimes it's like a to-do list part, an achiever part for all of us. And then here's my question for all of us. What is it that part longs for? What does it get when it goes and does its to-do list, it does its achievement? What does it long for? What does it long for, Lindy and you, that one?
I think today it was longing for being peace, but for being more peaceful like the twins and being able to just relax and enjoy.
Mhm.
You know, there was a resignation to it rather than oh yeah, I think I'll join in. It couldn't quite join in.
Oh, how about that? How about those parts of us that have a resignation? Because sometimes that just there's a skeptic or like, no, I'm not playing this, or they've just resigned. And some of us have parts of us that have given up, right? And some of us even find, sometimes they call it depression, parts that have given up. It's like not interested, resign. What when it resigns like that? What is it longing for? This is more subtle. When we have parts that have resigned, they've kind of given up, or I'm not going to play this, I'm not going to do this. What is it that they're longing for? What do you find, Lindy, with the resignation part in you?
Yeah, I wanted someone to play with.
And when it has someone to play with, what does it get to be? What does it find? What does it get in that playing with someone?
Distraction.
And when it gets distraction, what does it find in distraction? We all can relate to seeking distraction, right? Like what are we really longing for in distraction? What do you find in that, Lindy? And just it's like, is it ease? Is it peace? Is it just wow? It's a sense of a respite. Is it okayness? What does it find in the distraction?
I think it's a forgetting of the difficult feelings, perhaps of another part or its own. I'm not
And
quite sure.
And so when it does that, when it forgets, wow, there are lots of things that we have to deal with. There are parts that have to deal with it. When they forget that from the distraction, what do we find? What's here when we're fully distracted? What do we get?
Relief.
Relief. And what's that relief like for all of us? If we hear, can we relate to the longing for relief? And when we have this relief, what is that? Is there like a positive word for that, or like relief from? It gives us what? Is it peace? Is it okayness? Is it fulfillment? Is it ease? Is it flow? Is it some joy, a lightness of being, a play? What does it find?
Some excitement and flow, I think, for me.
Nice. And then how about that for all of us? The parts as we follow Lindy and our own version of it. Her words, excitement and flow. For some of us, it might be aliveness. It might be joy, excitement and flow. What's most like that? Any of those words in your system that's here now for you, for all of us? What's most like that which is here now? And then notice, can your parts feel that? Can your parts sense that, wow, wait a minute, there's flow here. There's excitement. There's aliveness here. I don't have to go out there to find it. It's right here. Lindy, thank you for playing. I really kind of got pushing with this one. I hope that's all right. Anything else you'd like to share? How are you doing? That was a lot. That was a lot to dive in like that. Doing all right?
It's, well, as I'd hoped for, it's interesting. So
Good, glad. Well, thank you for taking us all on that journey. Thank you. And how was that for all of us? Were we able to receive the gifts of Lindy sharing, that it wasn't just about her? She was inviting us to go to this very beautiful place inside. Thank you, Lindy. All right, before we go to Mary Lise, how are we doing? How are we doing? It's like, whoo, that was a lot. And just how are you? Notice what's here. Notice what's here. And notice that. And lastly, that Lindy, where her part took us to this aliveness, to this excitement, to this flow. Can your system maybe even just relax in that a little bit? Find a reprieve in self and beingness that is here. These parts that, okay, now there's something else to do. Can we just rest in this stuff, in this flow, in this aliveness that's here? What's it like? Can your parts feel that? Can they take a little break? Is there a place to rest here now in you? What's going on, Mary Lise?
Well, I have there's a sort of some movement going in kind of like two directions. There's or kind of like aware of two different things going on. It's not just two parts, but like, I don't know, two different like collections of parts doing like their thing. And yeah, there's some that's kind of centered around, there's some like pain in my stomach and some sense of some part that, like some sense of a part that might be connected to that feeling, and then a part that's like really, 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 really wanting to find a way to do something about it so that there wouldn't be pain anymore. So there's yeah, there's like more gentleness in that scene than usual. Maybe a bit more of a
This one that wants to do something about it. This part or parts that want to do something about it to get relief from the pain in the stomach. What's that voice like?
this is where I'm not sure if I'm gonna find words. It's I'm actually, well, now that I kind of zoom in on that part, I do notice like there's some softness maybe that I haven't noticed before. I'm more used to like extreme anxiety about the stomach pain, but there's like now I'm actually sensing there's some softness there. Like,
Let me just
like
invite everyone into this depth that you're taking us in, Mary Lise. Can we all find something that's happening in our body? And maybe there's a little discomfort, something with our body and a part that would like it to be different, that would like perhaps relief, more ease, less discomfort. And just notice where you find that part, that voice that would like something to change in your body. Then where Mary Lise is taking us, and you feel the intimacy that she's inviting us into with that part. The one that resists, the one that would like it different, to be different. What's that like in you? Tell us more, Mary Lise.
Yeah, this kind of connects with this other collection of parts, which is more like I was reminded as I was listening of a realization that I had some number of days ago about, reflecting upon like these like protector parts and sometimes the quite extreme things that they do, and how I don't remember anymore in what context that realization came, or at least I don't remember right now, but was like all of a sudden I was like aware so clearly, not just intellectually, but like so clearly aware of like just how much love there must be for those parts to be willing to take on those roles, like for those parts to be willing to do those things that they do, how much they must love whatever person they are part of in order for them to do such things, you know, like, you know, and there was just and then like there's like this, well, nonviolent communication practice. I know, Sid, you know about NVC. I don't know if everyone else does, but there's something that people say in NVC, like, you know, everything everyone ever does is to meet a beautiful human need that we all share. And this for me went like a layer deeper, like everything everyone ever does is out of love. You know, like and almost like in some sense, like almost the more extreme, the more, you know, like I don't know how to put it into words. Yeah,
What's it
there's
like? What's
something.
it like?
Hmm?
What's it like for your parts to be seen this way? For all of us, where Mary Elise is taking us, our parts to be seen. Wow, there's got to be so much love there for these parts to do all they're doing to care for us. What's it like, Mary Elise, for those arisings, those expressions, those parts of you to be seen that way, to be understood as expressions of love? What do you find?
I wondered if that's where the softness came from that I noticed. Almost like I have tears in my eyes, and I wonder if it's actually that part that's being seen in like how much love there is in it's what it's doing. I don't know. I'm not totally sure. Oh, there was some kind of noise, but I don't think it needs my attention. I got a bit distracted now.
How did they experience it? How did the parts experience this love? Is it like the love is in the air? The love is like they're soaking in the love, or like
It's
they're of the
everywhere.
air?
It's everywhere. Yeah.
And this love that's everywhere, how's it experienced? Is it like it's being breathed? It's what our cells are made of? How's it experienced?
Maybe the latter. I don't know. Something about that idea is kind of sweet. Or maybe all of it.
All of the above. And then as our parts can experience taste of this being seen as this love, so that it becomes really real life for us. It becomes embodied in real life for us, not just when we're in a group like this. As we each feel into our body or notice, oh, here I am. I look at this image of Sid on the screen. Here I am. Can we find what Mary Elise is speaking of, like here now, not just for our parts, for whatever this me is? This love, wow. Maybe made of love, maybe breathing love, maybe the space of love. If we're just going deeply into this flavor of self, of being as this love. Does it make that step in you, Mary Elise? Can that be tasted, or is it more internal?
I mean, if the love can be tasted.
the taste it. If Mary Lise can taste it, just right here, right now, as she's speaking to us, that it's just, can she feel that maybe she's being held in this love, that you are being held in this love, that we're being held in this love, that we are, perhaps even that we are this love.
Yeah, it's something like that. And maybe something that's new here is that, I don't know, somewhere in your, like, I don't remember where exactly, but somewhere in those tipping points that you stick in every email, or I think you changed them into something else now that I don't remember. There's this idea that parts are off self or something. And kind of like, it's almost like now when I see that part doing whatever it's doing, I can still, that still leads me to those self qualities. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. It's like those qualities are just, yeah, they're there. I don't know. Does that make, I don't know if I'm.
That does. And this seems to be the way it opens in many of us, what Mary Lise is describing. That at first our parts, we know them as kind of objects and we get space from them. And this is where we get a sense of, I call it riding the bike of being. We just stay as being, stay as self. There's love, there's peace, there's okayness, and then there are the parts. And we learn to be aware of the parts or speak for them from here. Then what we're getting with Mary Lise is that Sid, no, that's not true. That's not true. The parts aren't. As I hear a part, as I see a part, it's not separate from this. It's not separate from this self, this love. The parts are inseparable from this love. And the mind's like, but how do we make sense of this? What do we do? How do I talk about this? But just notice we've all had tastes of this. Right? Sometimes we have tastes of it in nature when there's just a sense of awe, or we have experienced beauty, or we experience being in love with another, and it just opens up into this that Mary Lise is kind of guiding us into today. Anything else, Mary Lise, with this? What you want to close, bring it together? Any other kind of thoughts on it?
I'll take a breath.
And for all of us, sometimes we have a part that comes up, like, oh, this love that Mary Lise is describing, that's better than sadness. That's better than resignation. And then we just notice that that's just a part. Can that part be welcome too? What gifts did you receive from Mary Lise? Were there any final words, Mary Lise, before we move to Debbie's system?
I might be at a loss for words again.
Lovely.
Yeah. Let's see if maybe something comes up later. I might say something.
Well, thank you. Thank you. How was that for all of us? Was that for you? And notice parts that might have come up. I'd be like, whatever, if there was resistance, or if there was like, oh, that's really not my way. Like, love isn't my way, is more stillness, peace, connectedness, whatever it is, just to notice that. And I'm wanting to like make sure we get to unpack what's happening in Debbie and Jack to receive what's happening in their systems. So just a breath before we transition. And just we can let go of everything, let go. It's like, here we are, here now, just here now, here in this present moment together. Perhaps love, peace, fulfillment of self. And then if you'll join me in the curiosity of like, how's this playing in Debbie? What's stuff playing in her? How is life moving in our friend Debbie? What's your guess? What is it, Debbie? What's the answer?
So much. Yeah, I just relate to everybody, parts of what everybody has shared so far. Yeah, definitely the distracted. I have this part that wants to distract me when things get uncomfortable. I just want to get out of those feelings, of those parts, and the sadness that Nicole spoke of, and Marilise. Oh my God, the words. Yeah, I have challenges expressing too. So thank you, everyone. Let's see. During the guided meditation, well, okay. First, I want to start off by saying on Saturday, I guess it was, we took care of my 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and so during the meditation, I remember her, like, their attention spans like 2 seconds, and on to something else. My parts are like, they never, well, I was there with my parts when they were like, during the meditation, when they were like, boom, 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 which is an experience that I didn't have growing up. No one was there accompanying me when I was all over my, so that was really cool. So it was a real gift to be able to take care of her and see like how important for her it is to have my presence there, even while she was doing her boom, 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 and how unaccompanied I was, and so I was able to be with my parts like all over the place.
What was that like for your system? And this kind of hits on what kind of Nicole and Lindy were speaking of at the very beginning. It's like recognizing the parts, being with them quicker rather than later, noticing them, being present with them. What was it like for your parts? What was it like for your system where there was this presence as they were kind of jumping around
Bouncing from one
like
thing
your granddaughter?
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't, let's see. So the parts felt, well, they didn't, like, they felt like there was some grounding. Do you, like, rather than just being alone and, being young and just bouncing from place to place or whatever.
And what was that like, grounding? What did that give them?
Yeah, it gave them permission to just bounce around and, explore and have fun and be upset, whatever, like, be upset when things are, don't go their way. But I was there with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was very, yeah, I didn't put that together until until your meditation. So my parts don't feel unaccompanied, like they have all my life.
What about this? Like part of me is just like, I don't want to go, like, I can imagine Debbie goes, there's something else I have to talk about. And something else happened. It's like, whoa, there's so much in just what you shared. Your parts not feeling unaccompanied, that there was this presence with them. And in that there was this freedom that they could just do whatever was there, express, they could play, they could bounce around. And there was ok-ness there because they weren't alone. They were accompanied.
Yeah. So they could just have fun and be real.
Let me just ask everyone, can we all find, is this translating for us what Debbie's sharing into our systems? In IFS, in classic IFS, they call this primary attachment, that the primary attachment shifts from like parents, peers, and partners to self, finding this primary attachment for our parts. It's like, wow, wait, there's this presence here with me. I'm not alone. That the parts get to find this, and just as Debbie's describing the experience of her parts, when they do have that, how do you relate to this in your system? And what's it like for your parts when they do have this presence with them? Do they get to dance around and move and play and express and fully be themselves, like Debbie's describing? How have you tasted that? What else you got on this, Debbie?
Yeah, and they feel, my parts feel more relaxed, because it was almost like going back, too much energy that I couldn't, as a nonverbal basically person, couldn't, a baby or whatever, a toddler, couldn't contain. So I guess the container, there's like a container. So
And having that container for your parts, something, there was a sense of being able to kind of relax more, express, be free, because there was this container of this presence.
mhm. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna hate to do this because I just want to, but I want to see if we could go just a little to application of this. One more question for you, Debbie. This container, this presence, how you were with your parts. As we talk about Debbie here, as we talk about Sid, Nicole, Mary, Lise, Lindy, Jack, can we find a flavor of that for us here, for me? That, wow, I'm not alone. This container Debbie's speaking of, this presence, this self, this beingness, this not being alone. Can we find that for whatever this sense of me is? And I don't want to, anything come for you on that, Debbie? I don't want to push it too far, but it just seemed to be an opening.
No, nothing's come.
Like maybe the connectedness here.
Yeah.
Maybe a present, the connectedness what we want is Debbie to get to have the experience that the parts had. Like, how do we find that for Debbie so she can have that experience that she's describing for her parts? All of us, how do we find that? For many of us, and Debbie and I love connectedness. That for me, it gives a sense of that field, that space, that container for me. Anything else you'd like to share, Debbie? You just took us to this most beautiful celebration.
No, thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. Woo! So we got one last celebration with Jack. And just as we go there, just notice what's here in you. And then the sense of here now, like here we are now in this present moment. What's here in this moment? Can you find that maybe there's a peace, a flow, an okayness, a love, a connectedness, a spaciousness? Maybe we can rest in this now together. And Jack has some place to take us. What you got, Jack?
Well, yeah. I guess one of the sort of fundamental things I rely on is the idea that each part has a piece of what I'll put in quotes as the truth. So it's easy to love parts if you realize that each of them is trying to help, and each one has at least a piece. So how do you put those pieces together? Yeah, or how do they let them play, like you say, let them play together, or how do you let them work things out? It's always fun.
Let me just say something real quick, just to invite everyone into this. Some of these speakers to find on YouTube, they speak of 3 windows to this. They speak of to know the pervadedness of everything is included in this. One is where Mary Lise took us, the sense of love. as the love starts pervading and everything is connected and everything is as this love. Another one is beauty. We really haven't gone in today, the window of beauty. And then Jack is kind of speaking, taking us to the third one they call truth or understanding, as he speaks of all these parts have a piece of truth in them. Just I wanted to make that possible bridge. Please continue, Jack.
And then somewhere along, I don't know if it was during the meditation or not, but I had this real strong sense of, oh, don't get attached. If I start to enjoy something, or I would just really enjoy what's happening, and I'll part say, yeah, don't get attached, right? So the parts are really sort of in awe of what I'll call the capital S self, that seems to just so naturally accept and let go. In other words, it enjoys everything without getting attached to anything. They're in awe of that, because the parts aren't always like that, right? They'll, oh yeah, that's good, or like, but it feels like the capitalist self doesn't have, that's just not, it's not in its nature at all, right? So I realized just how in awe they were. It's like, oh, and then the idea of distraction is just so, um, I distract myself a lot. What can I say? One of my favorite things to do. I mean, so what does that distraction give me? It's almost always a sense of newness, but it's also a sense of there's no problems to solve, right? If I'm being distracted, even if it's some kind of, even if I'm being distracted by a problem, right? If I'm really focusing on a problem, for me that could be a distraction of thinking about how to work something out, right? But the dis, but that this strangely enough, the distraction has this feeling of, oh, there's no problems to solve. Well, what would it be like? Or maybe it's more like, what would it be like if there's no problems to solve? And just, oh yeah, that would be really nice. So I guess you can be trying to solve a problem, thinking about what it would be like if you didn't have to solve it. I guess, I don't know. But so that was kind of going on for me. And then I, I like to think of, the self as awareness, okay? But more and more, much going on subconsciously, which I don't feel like I'm consciously aware of, right? Awareness doesn't quite seem right. The polarity between everything that's going on in my subconscious and the idea that somehow the self is, it feels like it has to be bigger than awareness in a way. Yeah. And then when I think it was Mary Louise started talking about love, I just had this sense of how big could the group be that I love? How big could that be? Because when I love someone, it feels really good. I mean, it's some people that I'm around are really easy, like my grandkids or something like that. So I just keep, so there's a part that says, yeah, how big could that be? How many people could you feel that way about, right? And what's in the way of that getting as big as it could possibly be? And are you able to take a perspective that would let that be just as big as you could let it be? So those are parts working that out. But there's this real strong polarity between zooming out. So to feel like I'm zooming out to for that love, bigger love to happen, really feels in conflict with, it was like a Google map, right? If I zoom out on a Google map, I can't see the little details. It's hard for me to love the little details when I zoom out. So there's this conflict or tension or whatever, or polarity, however you want to slice it or dice it, is between focusing in on just say one person and how much I love them, and zooming out to the entire cosmos and how do you love that? It feels like there's a real tension there that I hadn't noticed till I started thinking about what Mary Louise was talking about. Yeah, yeah. And the idea of sadness as love or resignation is love. Ooh, that's interesting. That my sadness is love. When I'm resigned, that's love. Just holding on to that a little bit. Really, I don't know. That's hard to talk about. I mean, it's sort of like, oh, it must be true, but can I really feel that way? It seems like, how can I point in that direction? So that's kind of what's been bobbling through my thought. But at risk right now, just a real sense of appreciation for what's going on.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Jack. How about that for all of us as we start moving towards a close? I ask an indulgence for just a couple more minutes to bring this all together. Just to receive where Jack took us. He was like bringing a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together. What gifts were you able to receive from that? Zooming out versus zooming in. What does your system do with that? Zooming out versus zooming in. Today, with Nicole's sadness, for example, there was a sense of zooming into it, like really sinking into the sadness. With Lindy's resignation, a sense of zooming into it, sinking into the resignation. What's it really longing for, really feeling into it? Same with Mary Lisa's sense of, I'm wanting the pain in my stomach to decrease, that part. Really being with that. And perhaps this zooming in, this might be that third window of beauty as we become more and more intimate with a part, as we step into it. Something opens, as we found in Lindy's, as we found in Nicole's, as we found in Mary Lisa's, which, wow, well, there's calmness here, Sid, as we zoomed into it. And so Jack mentioned a part that was like, don't attach to the parts, don't attach. But then what if we attach? So we've seen some attachment happening here in a way where we're zooming in, and maybe it's not attachment, but it's going closer into it. Just another way to appreciate that. See what opened as we became so intimate with these parts in us. What did they open up into? What were they longing for? Or is in Mary Lisa's system, wow, Sid, I go there and they're not separate. They are of this love. We get closer to the parts, discomfort. Lastly, as we close, just as you look around and see the five of us and the gifts that each of us shared with you today, the gifts that you received from us, can you also hear the gift that you were to us today and just sharing what was happening inside of you? Sharing your parts, just as Debbie said, being authentic with what's here. The gift that was for us, the gift of your humanity just the way it is, the gift of how life is moving in you. The gift that what that was for us. So what a pleasure, what a treat being with you today. Debbie had something that I also wanted to give Mary Lise 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Debbie.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say, for me, when you were talking about zooming in or zooming out, it's the paradox for me is when I zoom in, then I zoom out. I can zoom out. But for my system, if I just like zoom out, because probably my history of not being contained, it's way overwhelming. Does that make sense? So zooming in, I can, if it's interesting how that works.
Yes, and how it plays for each of us.
Yeah.
And appreciating that and not noticing if there's something that says it should be different. It's like that. That. Hmm.
So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie. Mary Lise, will you do a final words of closing for us, or silence?
Oh gosh, I don't know what. I guess I can just drop in this thought that just popped into my mind, which is like one thing that I'm wondering, hearing, over and over again, you draw our attention to these parts that want things to be different, and kind of acknowledge that as parts. And then at the same time, I notice this paradox. On the one hand, inviting us to just be with what is, not wishing it to be different. And at the same time, there is some kind of direction of healing that exists. And it is in some sense good, right? And like trying to hold these things at the same time, just I'm left with kind of like, yeah. It's not the first time I think of it, but once again it comes and I'm like, how do I make sense of this?
Thank you, Mary Lise. Thank you, everybody. Come again, come play. Beautiful being
Thank
with you.
you. Bye.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for helping me feel seen. You're very, as a mediator, you're very good at making things feel seen. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye. Oh.
Thank